All right, Ashley, take it away.
All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Carrie's Texas flag waving to
I know.
Okay. Well, we don't have any visitors. I know that we've got Michael with Carrie up there and Corey is over here. And he'll be in the screen in a second. So we'll just move right past that. And because we want to give Andrew as much time as possible, I'm going to jump into the happy jar. Jennifer, do you have something you're happy about?
Yes, I do. I always do. I have a closing next week, and all the walkthroughs have so far been good. We've had a few, like just the ticky-tack things, you know, like cosmetic stuff like paint. So we did our blue tape walk yesterday, and the guy thought we were hilarious. So it was super fun. But yes, I'm very excited about the closing next week.
Awesome. I am doing my happy jar right now. I'm happy because it's my birthday weekend.
Hey.
Yay!
My birthday's on Tuesday, but yeah.
I never knew how old you were, and I was impressed that you're a millennial too.
I'm not a millennial.
I know.
As every
I'm a millennial.
Everybody, I think everybody younger than me is a millennial. How's that?
Yeah.
You know. So
No.
I can understand that, Dwayne.
that's right. Well, because you're married to millennials.
I am.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Nope. I'm on the cusp, but I'm not a millennial.
It's only the people that aren't millennials that are proud to claim I'm a millennial.
Right.
Yeah. I like to say I remember 8 tracks in vehicles, and when you didn't have to buckle up. I'm not a millennial.
What are 8 tracks?
We had a collection in my house.
Dwayne, these old people
That's what people listen to when they're doing the dancing, Dwayne.
Oh,
old people.
The dancing.
There you go.
yeah. Well, I have a happy thought is that we estimated that, well, we had 197 cars come through our food drive the other day. Many of those cars, it was really neat. They'd ask how many families in a car, and so they had shoe polish, and they would write 2 or 3. We saw pickup trucks that had 4. So they estimated over 500 families came through our food drive and the other day, and it was so exhausting, but it was wonderful. You know.
It was so exhausting.
Yeah. And then they got finished, and they were like, "Oh, we planned for a crowd like Dallas, so we brought all these extra pallets." So they looked at me, and he goes, "Could you use extra food?" I said, "Well, I just ordered a bunch." And he goes, "Well, what if we deliver these 9 pallets to your food bank and not charge y'all?" And I was like, "I'll make room." So we got 9 extra pallets of food.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wonderful.
To do that. So
That should have been our Rotary Minute right there. That's amazing.
And then we had, we also received the Denton County Cares grant, part of that for the food bank. And so I'm excited. And in our meeting yesterday, I talked to 2 council people from Oak Point, and they're going to be in our Christmas parade and invite their mayor and other people. And they said, "Is there a charge to be in the parade?" I said, yes, there is, but I don't know for sure what it is. But they go, "Well, just tell us, we'll pay it." I was like, so I'm going to talk to every surrounding council around here. And I already talked to, I talked to the police chief, and he said, "Let us get through the COVID thing." He already put it on the calendar. He said, "Yeah, y'all can do the parade again." And so we're planning on that as soon as we're able to get that done.
Anybody else happy? Carrie?
Oh yeah, I'll just say that I'm just happy that all our Rotarians are connecting together. Chris called and said that he applied for the grant. Thank you, Hugh, for voting and making that happen. And You know, everybody's just connecting and syncing, and Chastity's graduating and getting all kinds of love, and it's just, everybody's just working together. It just really makes me happy. Thank you guys.
And I'm happy I got to attend Point Bank's meeting yesterday morning with Jared. It was informative. No, I had to leave. I'm sad I missed the second part of it, but I had a delivery showing up. But yeah, I'm glad I got to attend, because aside from doing the video, I've never gotten to attend one.
Yeah.
Aw.
So thank you,
So
Jennifer.
nice.
We'll make sure to attend more of these.
Aw, well, we were glad to have you.
All right.
I'll just speed past that one.
Yep. Okay, good. Because we want to make sure to give it some time. So this morning at 11 o'clock, Chastity is graduating. And so there is a link on our Facebook group if you want to watch the live graduation ceremony from Texas Motor Speedway for Braswell High School. So and support her in that way. And I just also want to make sure that everybody remembers that this weekend, or Monday, is Memorial Day as well. I know I didn't say that earlier, but you know, make sure if there's someone that has lost their life in line of duty. Memorial Day is remembering those, and Veterans Day is the ones when they're alive. So that's all right.
Okay.
Well, Andrew, we wanted to make sure that we gave you a little extra time this morning, and we sped through everything to give you more time. Maybe 6 minutes though.
Great. That's great. Well, good. Are you all ready?
Yes.
We are. Yes.
I made you the host.
Oh, thank you. Well, good. How many people weren't on the call last week?
I wasn't able to make it, but I did watch it afterwards, so I saw it.
I was about halfway through the call, so I didn't get to hear all your presentation.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to today.
Hugh is good. He's the one that has the open for business sign. He wasn't on the call, but he did take the assessment. So
excellent. Well, good. Well, I'm really looking forward to this time. I mentioned last week a little bit about my work. I'm since 2006, I've been working as a coach and a consultant out in Oregon, but I've had clients all over the country, and the focus on my work is really helping leaders and teams perform at their potential. So I really love working with a wide range of different teams. And I've worked with a wide range of sectors. Everything from, you know, big global brands like Nike to local startups to municipalities and, you know, public, private. So wide range in those 14 years of being out on my own. So love what I do. Incredibly rewarding just to see, you know, been working with one client that comes to mind where their team was in absolute crisis. We worked together for about 6 weeks, and the CEO came to me and said he didn't recognize the group anymore. He said it's unbelievable, the transformation that's gone through their group. And he's a very kind person, cares about people. So on the one hand, he was just glad to see people enjoying themselves and their jobs. But this team was also costing him about $400,000 a year. So he was very happy about me helping him in that too. So that's the bulk of my work. I used to travel a lot more, and as my kids have gotten older, we have 3 daughters, 12, 14, and as of 2 days ago, 18, which is hard to believe. I want to be home as much as I can near them. So a lot of my work is in the western side of the United States. So that's a little bit about me. What we talked about last week, we went through the sort of foundational piece, and to set up today, which is where we're going to go deeper into the 5 voices. And the 5 voices is, I remember when I first learned about 5 voices, I had a client that they had used a different assessment in their work together. And I only noticed it because they had on their door, they had taped up the piece of paper with their assessment on it. But when you actually asked, well, what are you doing with that assessment? I got blank stares, like, well, I don't know. We just put these on our doors. I'm this, and my person next to my office is this and that. So on the one hand, I think all assessments are helpful in creating self-awareness. 5 Voices jumped out to me because you and I are incredibly complex people. All people are incredibly complex. And so those labels that a lot of assessments spit out, you're this, you're that, you're this, in my experience, didn't really capture how complex we are as people. Because you catch us in a certain situation and we'll be doing the exact opposite of what our little piece of paper says on our door, right? So there's this wide range of behavior that I wanted something that accounted for that. And what I love about 5 Voices is the premise of 5 Voices is that you and I all have all 5 voices. It's not as if you took the assessment and it came out guardian, well, that's just your top voice. That doesn't mean that defines you entirely. That is just your preferred foundational voice. The other 5 voices come into play. And so that's what really excited me about that for one. 2, how many of you have taken leadership training before? Any sort of, okay, wow. Unanimous. If your experience is anything like mine, you go to a training, you get super excited, you think this is going to be awesome, and you've got your 3-ring binder and all these things, and then you go back and get immediately overwhelmed by the tyranny of the urgent, and you go back to doing something that resembles what you were doing before the leadership training, because it's an unsustainable model. So we go to these workshops and everyone gets excited, and then everyone eventually, there's this attrition, we go back to doing what we were doing before. So Giant, the organization that I'm part of that created the 5 Voices, their whole model is to create sustainable long-term transformation. And that's what drew me to them as well, is this sustained long-term transformation. So 5 Voices is really just, gosh, think of it like the front porch of your house, right? No one would look at your front porch and define your house by your front porch. It's just the entry point. And 5 Voices is the same way. Once you know your assessment, what Giant has is they've built out all these tools, some of which we touched on last week, that tie into your 5 voices. And then teams can then use those tools to improve performance based on your foundational voice, your voice order. So the support challenge matrix, for example, you look at that and you go, well, some voices are high support, some are high challenge. How do we work on that? And so all the tools tie into that so that it's scalable people development. So it's really disrupting. It's kind of like Uber. Giant is the Uber of leadership development. They're disrupting how we've done it before, because what we were doing doesn't work. So what I love, part of the huge frustration of my own old traditional work is, I remember speaking at Nike one time to this enormous group, and at the end, people came up and they were like, oh my gosh, and this one lady came out of the crowd and she shook my hand like a bunch of times. I was so excited. But what killed me was, I'm glad that you're excited about this, but I want this to change you, not just today, but for the weeks and days to come, and the months and even the years to come. So that's the work that I do now, is transforming teams, not just today and tomorrow, but for years to come. Let's jump into I'm going to unpack these 5 voices and we'll see how far we can get in this. But there's so much we can do. So my goal today is to not fire hose all of you and try to keep this as helpful and actionable as possible. By the way, this goes without saying, but I mentioned it last week. If you have any questions at all, just jump in and throw them in the chat window or take yourself off mute, because I want this to be something that, it's Friday. My hope is you go into this weekend going like, oh my gosh, this has changed how I view my own leadership voice. And now I want other people in my family or in work to take it and just see where this goes, because it truly is transformative. It has been for me personally, as well as my wife, my family. Once you actually start understanding who you are, you can start actually leading based on who you are. So really, really exciting stuff. So let's go through each of these 5 voices. These are arranged in order of volume. You'll notice these volume indicators here. So the nurturer is the quietest. Now, when it comes to volume, this doesn't mean necessarily loudness. I mean, you can actually have nurturers. I've known nurturers, some nurturers who are actually quite verbal and actually once you let them open up, nurturers can be quite verbal. But think of volume in terms of force. So on the left, on the far left, you have nurturer. On the far right, you have a pioneer. Now, a pioneer may not say anything for an hour-long meeting, and then in the last 2 minutes, maybe says 5 sentences. But those 5 sentences carry more force than anyone else in the entire meeting because they're a pioneer. They speak with incredible force and conviction. So keep that in mind when we talk about volume. So this is, let's talk through the nurturer. The nurturer is the champion of people. And we're going to go a little more in depth in each of these as we go. But the nurturer is a champion of relational harmony. If you picture yourself in a meeting or a large group, the nurturer has this unbelievable ability to know what's happening in the space between people. So nurturers can just, they have this spidey sense of, you know, things are not going well, or things, you know, something just happened where people reacted poorly to that, and they're picking up on that at a relational level. For example, I was working with I'm working with a chief operations officer, and he's a pioneer. And as we were going through this, he turned to one of the nurturers in the group and he said, "So wait, are you saying that you knew last year when I rolled out that policy that it wouldn't go very well?" The nurturer was like, "Yep, I knew that." Well, the pioneer's blind to those kinds of things, whereas the nurturer absolutely knows how people are going to react to certain things. It's almost like a super sense. So nurturers are enormously valuable in a company culture. But notice their volume level. It is the absolute quietest. And so what happens in most groups is nurturers get pushed to the back and have very, very little voice. And I'll talk about the implications for that in just a second. But you'll also notice this is 43% of the population. So almost half of the people. So on this call of 10 people, 9 people, we're talking, you know, 3 to 4 of you are statistically bound to be first voice nurturers. Okay, let's move to the creative. Creatives are much less common. So first voice creatives are about 9% of the population. Creatives, their superpower is they can, if you picture them being on a ladder in a crowd, so the nurturer picked up on what was happening within the crowd, the nurturer or the creative is actually above the crowd. They can see out over everything, and they can see the future. They can see ideas. They don't know what it's like to think inside the box. Outside of the box thinking is all they know. So they're the ones in a meeting where everyone's been talking about one thing for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden the creative talks, and no one has any idea what that creative's talking about because it just came out of nowhere. Wait, we weren't even talking about this, and everyone looks confused. And yet for the creative, it makes absolute sense how they got to that point in their mind, because they connect all these dots quite quickly, and they put together these ingenious concepts, and they can think through, because they're committed to the ideal. And that's the ideal for ideas, but also ideals for organizational integrity. So if an organization starts going off center, it's the creative that's going to feel that. So the nurturer picks up if the relationships are going off center. The creative picks up off when the ideal of an organization starts going off center. So very, very interesting voice. But again, the second quietest voice. Okay, now we're going to whiplash, because no voice is more different from the creative than the guardian. So the guardian 30% of the population, a third of the people, they are committed to due diligence. So how do we set up processes that are repeatable? They're a champion of getting to the truth. So a guardian asks lots of questions. They're the ones in a team that the team feels like, we got to just move forward, but the guardian's like, yeah, I've got 30 more questions for you. And they'll go through those questions, and that can cause team friction if they don't have the tools to know what to do about that. So the guardian is just all about making sure that we are grounded in doing the right thing. They're highly risk averse. Guardians do not like risk. Guardians and nurturers will team up, because notice at the bottom what this says, they're both present oriented. So a nurturer is rooted in the present, and so is a guardian, and whereas the other three voices are future oriented. That alone is what causes significant conflict within teams, because you have three of the voices are pulling forward, whereas 73% of the voices are pulling back or staying in the present. Okay, so the connector is, now let's pause here for a second. I'm a pioneer creative, which means I'm really bad at math, but I can do this math. 43 plus 9, 52, plus 30 is 82%, right? So I'm gonna put that in the chat window so there's no question about it. 82% of the population makes up the three quietest voices. So how many of you have been part of a team where a very select few dominated almost every single meeting, right? That's probably familiar to most of you. Chances are it's because of this dynamic. You have the connectors and the pioneers that really are driving the conversation, they're driving the process, and then you have the three quietest voices that are marginalized to the background. That's what causes teams to perform. I'll put another statistic in the chat window. 57%. 57% is the average performance of most teams. So when I go in working with a team, typically they're at 57 or even lower. Some are higher. I've worked with some that are 70. But by what you do is by unleashing and unlocking these three voices, all of a sudden the performance of teams skyrockets. Because what you've done is you've given the nurturers, creatives, and guardians a voice. And you've put in rules and guidelines to help teams tap into what they have to bring. Okay, so those are the first three voices. Let's go to the last two. And it always is hard for me to go through this because there's so much we can get into. Connectors are champions. They, as you might expect, they are connectors of people. But they're not just connectors of people, they're connectors of resources as well. They're incredibly effective in their communication. They can sell the heck out of something. If you have a Rotary event where you're trying to raise money or you really need to engage people, put a connector up there. They tend to be the people that can passionately sell things. The saying is they go for your head and then your heart and then your wallet. So that's a connector. They're 11% of the population. They have an interesting way of, the thing about connectors is they will take it personally if you challenge their ideas. I'm going to get into that a little bit, but they so weave themselves into their ideas that when you challenge those ideas, they take it personally. So that's the flip side of a connector, is they have this vulnerability to taking things personally when you challenge them in any way. Okay, the last one is the most rare. It's the pioneer. Think of the pioneer as a chess player. They see all the pieces on the board. They move the pieces. They're interested in how to strategically win. There's nothing that drives a pioneer more than winning. They want to be the best. They will lose at no cost. So they're incredible problem solvers, and pioneers have this ability to get teams to do what the team didn't think was possible. Like, whenever all the other four voices are kind of like, no, I don't think we can do this, the pioneer is like, yes, we can, and here's how we're going to do it. Follow me, and they'll take the hill. So pioneers are incredibly inspirational in their drive and willingness to win. Now, moving on, let's unpack these a little bit more, and we'll just see how far we can get on these. Each voice has a liberation statement. So this is literally, I'm going to give you a peek inside like what I actually do with teams, because as people start to understand what brings out the best in each voice, they can start making commitments to bring out that best in other people. So for example, let's look at the nurturer here. The nurturer says, I need you to value my contribution and take the time to draw out what I really think, invest and believe in me if I struggle to believe I'm good enough, spend quality time with me, get to know me, and join me in caring for others, even when you don't perceive it as important. No other voice can say that but the nurturer, right? The pioneer's hearing that going like, I can't even relate to that. That doesn't, but then for the nurturer, this is how you roll. So those nurturers on the call, when I read that, you were like, yep, that's what I need from my team. So part of the process that I take teams through is then that's what you need from the team. And then I work with the team to say, okay, how can you actually provide that for the nurturer? And we work on them accessing that and being able to support that nurturer in this liberation statement. Some of the triggers for nurturers is when you feel people like take you for granted. You know, you're going around doing all these things, caring for people, but no one's really appreciating you or recognizing the value you bring. Other triggers are you don't feel heard. A nurturer sitting in a meeting, if I could speak for you nurturers, you're sitting there and you're taking in all this information and you're putting together this response, this solution. And then by the time it comes for you to actually share it, the conversation's already moved on, right? It's already blown past you, and it's no longer, it would be kind of awkward for you to share what you've been working on. That's a common experience for nurturers. They don't feel heard. They often feel ignored. And then another thing that can trigger them big time is when people they care about are being treated unfairly. So each voice has what's called its own weapon system. I'm literally taking, this is like the weapon system is an entire workshop on its own, but the weapon system for a nurturer, when they're triggered by these things down below, is to withhold care. So they're so good at caring for people, but when they're triggered, they say, fine, I'm going to withhold my care. One nurturer CEO I talked to said, yep, that's me. He's like, when people cross me or treat people I care about unfairly, they're done. They're dead to me. So that's the nurturer. So the creative, again, is the champion of organizational integrity, big ideas outside the box thinking. Now, here's what's interesting is you've got we have actually two kinds of creatives. There's a creative connector and a creative thinker. And actually the weapon system is a good way to figure out which you are. Because for the creative feeler, the creative feeler turns into the Hulk when triggered. And these are the triggers for the creative feeler. We'll get to the creative thinker in a second. But for the creative feeler, I need you to believe in me and my ideas. Don't judge me on what I say first. Make sure you take the time to ask the questions to understand what I'm trying to say. Give me the space to dream and keep encouraging me to push new frontiers you can't see yet. So these are the different triggers for a creative feeler. And this is how they respond with the Hulk. It's this eruption when these triggers take place. Creative thinker is different. The creative thinker, their liberation statement is the same, but look at their triggers. They're different. Incompetence, inefficiency, arrogance, people appearing to dismiss, exaggeration of the truth. And when a creative thinker is triggered, you will just hear this silent but lethal sniper shot that takes the creative thinker will take out whoever the offending source with usually a well-crafted statement, but it's very clean and very, very lethal. That's the creative thinker. All right. The Guardian says, I need you to respect my professionalism, competence, and desire to bring order, systems, and processes to life. Let me ask my questions and do my diligence. Value the real me that lies behind my logical, rational questions and critique. So these are all the triggers for the Guardian: lack of trust in others' credibility, unnecessary risk-taking, unresponsive arrogance, illogical people appearing incompetent. I've seen that firsthand for Guardians. And when they are triggered, remember what they're good at? They're good at asking questions. So every weapon system is the dark side of a gift. So the Guardian, when triggered, you know those Pez containers where you keep feeding in the candies? The Guardian will just keep loading questions, and they no longer care about the response. All they care about is pinning this person down with an onslaught of questions. So Guardians out there, if there's any Guardians on the call, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, connectors. Connectors want us to celebrate life and understand that at my best, I don't separate work, rest, and play very easily. Regularly ask me what I'm excited about and let me tell my stories. Never stop believing in me. Appreciate my strategic connections and encourage me to keep dreaming about changing the world and expanding our influence. The big triggers for a connector are people taking credit for your work, not recognizing the validity of your ideas, and sensing that people aren't for you. And then people that aren't willing to collaborate, people that resist the connection. And when a connector is triggered, if you offend a connector, you will soon find yourself on an island, because what the connector will do, an immature connector, I should say, is an immature connector will systematically go to all the people around you and just start casting some doubt on your own leader, on you and your ability to lead. So, hey, yeah, did you see what do you think about what Carrie said at the meeting last week? That was a little weird. Well, maybe it was fine. And there's this it's a passive aggressive tendency, but what they're doing is they're using their ability to form connections in the inverse. They're dissolving your connections, and before you know it, the connector has aligned all sorts of people that doubt your leadership. And I've been on the receiving end of this firsthand. Unbelievable to watch this happen. And typically it's the immature connector that will go about doing that. Now, the pioneers lack subtlety, so nothing about the pioneer is subtle. Their preferred weapon system is a grenade launcher. So again, nothing subtle about that. But what a pioneer needs from you is to respect their competence. Don't judge them for being highly competitive people and ambitious and wanting to change the world. Invite them, give them a platform to do that, and you will get the most out of a pioneer. And encouraging them to dream beyond what anyone else on the team believes possible. The pioneer that's what they thrive on, and that's how they bring the best to their teams. But competence, their own sense of competence and their perception of competence as other people is the flashpoint. So if they perceive that someone else is incompetent, for a pioneer, it's like they don't exist anymore. And here's the thing about pioneers. I feel a little defensive, not because I am a pioneer, but pioneers, it's not a personal thing. They don't think in terms of they think in terms of competence. So a mature pioneer works hard to work against that tendency to ignore people and really see the value in other people. But if you want to see the grenade launcher, challenge their competence, and you will bring out the grenade launcher in short order. Or people that threaten their vision, or people wasting time, sitting in a meeting and just kind of like, blah, blah, blah. What are we here for? What are we talking about? You'll see the pioneer just start fuming. So what I'm going to do is we're down to, I think we've got about 7 minutes left. You'll notice on the left here, these are all giant tools that build off what we just talked about, but obviously we're not going to go into those. Let me just show you this one tool, this one diagram. And this breaks down all of the different voices into these quadrants. So on the y-axis, you'll see decision making. And on the bottom here, systems and logic. On the top, people and values. Whereas the x-axis is processing. And on the left, you'll see these are present-oriented voices and these are future-oriented voices. So when it comes to decision-making, the nurturers are all about people and value and being present-oriented, whereas the guardian is all about systems and logic and present-oriented, but not about people necessarily. Guardians are kind of like pioneers. They can distance themselves from people, disconnect from people in their decision-making. Whereas the connector and the creative are over here in terms of valuing people but very future-oriented. And the pioneer and the creative, they are systems, logic, and order and future-oriented. So this, when it comes to actually how these voices play out, I will show this to a team, or if I'm coaching an individual leader, and they'll be able to see themselves on this and go, oh my gosh, no wonder that I'm having these problems, these issues because I'm here and that other person on our team's here, and no wonder we're in conflict. Okay, wow, let's take a breath there and use whatever time we have left I'd love to just unpack this. Feel free to ask questions. I'm just now looking at the chat window, so let me see if there are any specific questions, but let's just use the time for questions, thoughts, comments. How can I help you in the remaining 5 minutes that we have together?
Hey guys, unmute.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for this. This is really explains a lot. But well, and I'm actually thinking it's really great though that we have such a diverse Rotary Club, because I could see where we're all pulling off of each other. I guess in your team coaching and as you're guiding other leaders and companies, how are you explaining how to engage each other being so different? Like a guardian to a connector.
I was working with a team, I'll use that exact example, where a guardian and a connector, a lot of the team conflict revolved around a guardian and a connector. So let's look at this. You have the connector is future oriented and people and values, but you will notice down here, the guardian is the exact opposite, present oriented, systems and logic. Not surprising that they were in conflict with one another. And so what I'll never forget, we're sitting in a meeting and this connector was just had enough, which takes a lot for connectors. And he finally leaned over the table and said, to the guardian, I just want you to be more, and I watched his lips, and it was like in a movie when it's slow motion, and I couldn't stop him from saying what he was about to say because I knew it would absolutely set off the guardian. He's like, I just want you to be more flexible. I was like, oh no, he used the F word. And so you could just see the guardian just redline in an instant. And I said, okay, let's stop that, because that just was the flashpoint. And I said, what connector, what do you mean by flexible? And he started unpacking it. And as he started unpacking what he meant by flexible, he got into some processes like, well, I just wish when I brought this to you that you would be able to do this. And now we're talking guardian language, because the guardian speaks process and checkboxes and systems. So what I had the connector do was think through, how do you translate your flexible, since that's going to be a flash word for the guardian, into something that the guardian could actually understand. And it ended up being a very healthy, helpful conversation. Now that's one conversation and it's ongoing work, but the connector's finally starting to recognize that. And the guardian can see the connector trying to respect his processes. And that's where the healing has come from on this team. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. We have a lot of guardians in this club, so I'm.
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, and I'm married
and we
to one.
all and we all work perfectly together.
We also have
Harmony.
quite a few that are up on, that are connectors or creatives or pioneers too. Very future oriented leadership right now, I think.
Yes, that's
Very
that's
and
true.
Yeah, and so you can where it breaks down whenever you have conflict. This tool is going to highlight often where it breaks down for most teams. It becomes a tug of war between the future and the present, between the systems and log.
Pioneer, married to nurturer.
Yep, my wife's a nurturer, and
So there's hope.
oh, there absolutely is. And here's what I love about this is it's very asset built, because the premise of Five Voices is that everyone's perspective brings value. So every voice has a nemesis voice. So every single voice has a nemesis voice. So for the nurturer, their nemesis voice is a pioneer. If you've ever been on a team and someone drove you crazy, that's probably your nemesis voice. So pioneer, nurturer are nemesis. The guardian has the privilege of having two nemesis voices, the creative and the connector. So they bring friction wherever they go. No. So you have to think about it on those terms, and then of course for the pioneer, their nemesis is the nurturer, so it's mutual. But what this offers is an ability for no matter what voice you are, is you actually get to recognize the value that other voices bring. So even though the guardian, actually nurturer is my nemesis voice, through this process, I'm recognizing, oh my gosh, where would we be without the nurturer? Like, imagine if a team didn't have a nurturer on it, what would that mean? Right. Or a team didn't have a guardian on it. So you have all these future-oriented voices that are absolutely driving off into the sunset with nothing anchoring them to the present. It's not a good recipe. You know, you think of Elon Musk or something like that, where it's like, you know, crazy town, because there's no checks and balances. That's where the nurturers and the guardians come in. High performing teams have this ability to blend all five voices. And that's the most rewarding part of my work, is being able to see when that happens and what teams just go off the charts.
Well, this has been amazing and so enlightening for us. And I do encourage everyone to check out the videos on the Giant website. The videos are very, they very well explain everything. So just keep clicking through all the different selections there.
I have one quick question, if that's okay. I know we're at time. For those who are business owners, like who are solopreneurs, who own and run their own thing, who may not have a team quite yet, or maybe they're working with clients who they don't know what their voice particularly is, what advice would you give them as they kind of navigate the five voices as a solopreneur?
2 words: develop yourself. So the more you know about yourself, the more you can lead yourself, the more you can lead others. I was, this time last year, getting ready to start a project, and I kept thinking we were moving forward, and I kept getting questions from one person on the team. Drove me crazy until I realized he's a guardian. No wonder he has all these questions. So I started answering his questions, and eventually he just was satisfied and we could move on. But if I had stayed in that space of him driving me crazy, then I just make it about him and we don't move forward because I'm just getting frustrated. The only reason I was able to do that is because I had this at my disposal, this awareness of myself and this ability to lead myself. So I would encourage you to dig in and develop yourself. That's where the platform comes in. If you go to the platform, the main thing I would encourage you to watch are all the 16-part video series on your particular voice order. It's actually read by someone who has your exact voice order. So I would immerse yourself in those 16 voices. If you want to go up from that, I would go through the everyone track, which is what you get for free when you sign up for the Giant, which is, I mean, Giant is as much as Netflix every month, so it doesn't cost much. But the everyone path, and for those of you that are like, I actually want to go even deeper with this, you'll notice that there's a leader path as well, and that's $50 a month, and that you actually get to be part of a cohort of people all around the world, and you're going through, I mean, you can see on the left here, all these different tools. You're going through and learning how to apply these tools to yourself, and then to your home life, to your professional life, and that would be my encouragement. And you can do all that on the platform. And then after that, it's more bringing in someone like me to work with you or work with your team on how to apply these things. Lots of options, but let me know if any of you have any questions as you go through that process. I'm more than happy to interact with you.
I have a question as well. I know, again, we're at time, but so I'm a leadership consultant, and I use a lot of different assessments, and I really enjoyed this one, complementing some of the other ones that I use. Is this a Giant only tool? Is it a tool that you share with other consultant practices, or?
Well, it absolutely is. It's absolutely consistent and builds on like Predictive Index or Strength Finder or DISC or whatever.
Yeah. Totally
consistent. What I like is the richness that this brings out. The other great thing about this is I had someone that was just signing up for assessment. I mean, some of them are hundreds of dollars, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This one's free.
Yeah.
Like you can go to, I mean, I can put it in the chat window. You know, you guys have already taken it, but that's free.
Yeah.
So that's another huge, but what I love about it is that it ties into a larger system, because a lot of times I'd go, well, what are you on the Myers-Briggs? Well, I'm an ES, I can't remember, and let alone what to do with it. And so 5 voices is you can remember it and it's actionable. I can actually do something with it to make myself and my team perform at a better level.
So is it a tool that I can use and share with my clients, or what is the best? I mean, is that a thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you can, and just, you know, it's fairly, are you familiar with, do you work with Myers-Briggs?
I do Clifton Strengths, and we do the IOPT.
Okay.
So those are the 2 that I use primarily.
Yeah. So that's so yeah, absolutely complementary with all of that.
Awesome.
I know a couple people are probably going to reach out to you, Andrew. Can you put your email back in the chat box too? Just for, you know, further.
Did that show up for you?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thanks for patching me in.
And he does answer his emails. That's how he showed up today.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So anybody have anything for the good of Rotary?
No, thanks for coming. That's awesome. That's super great.
Happy Memorial Day.
All right. Dwayne, out with the 4-way test.
All right. The 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. 1,
is it the truth?
Is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And number 5, especially for a holiday weekend, have some fun.
Have some fun. All right.
So, y'all take care. Happy birthday, Sina.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy early birthday. And don't forget to tune in to Chastity's graduation.
That's right. So.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
I'll stay on, Carrie, if you need to jump off, if anybody wants to talk to each other.
Oh, okay. If anybody wants
Carrie needs to get to work, but sometimes people talk.
I gotta
If y'all